Hey, Cashflow Ninjas, real quick before we jump into today's episode, I've been asked by many people recently what has been the one thing that has made all the difference on my journey as a business owner and investor. I started businesses and I've invested in businesses. I've invested in single family real estate, multifamily real estate. I still have a sizable portfolio of multifamily real estate, historic resorts, mobile home parks, oil and gas, life settlements, gold and silver, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I could go on. But the one thing that has changed the financial trajectory for myself and my family has been infinite banking. Yes, you heard that correctly. That is the number one thing I've done over the past 2 decades that have made the single biggest difference. And it's not even close. Setting up and building out a family banking system using infinite banking has enabled me to create my own financial system. This year, it has allowed me to focus and not pay attention to all the chaos in the global economy and global financial markets. I really don't pay attention to all the noise about tariffs, trade wars, markets violently going down and then going back up, or interest rates skyrocketing and wrecking real estate deals and other alternative investment deals. Do not be beholden to other systems. Create your own system. If you're interested in working with me and my team at Producers Wealth to set up your own banking system or your own business and family banking system, then go to getwealthyforsure.com. That's getwealthyforsure.com. When you go to getwealthyforsure.com, you can request a free copy of my best-selling book, Get Wealthy for Sure. Only pay for shipping. You can also watch all of our presentations and schedule a call to explore infinite banking options with me and my team. You don't have to be powerless amidst the chaos. You too can have a financial strategy that provides certainty, predictability, and clarity. You and your family can also get wealthy for sure. Go to getwealthyforsure.com to start your journey today.
The world is going through changes happening at a speed that we have never seen before. This is leading to disruption, chaos, panic, fear, hysteria, and a turbulent economy and marketplace. How do you protect your wealth in a turbulent world? How do you invest for cash flow in alternative assets to escape the rat race in times of uncertainty? How do you decentralize yourself, your family, your community, your business, and your investments to become sovereign and escape the matrix? If you are looking for strategies, tactics, and techniques to escape the rat race and matrix, you are in the right place. My name is MC Laubscher, and this is Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Laubscher. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode in spending your most valuable resource, your time. Once again, with me on the show, everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. We've got over 1,000 podcast episodes, 4 books, reports, webinars, and much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the #1 newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. I've got a fantastic show for you today. I'm joined by Eugene Shatsman. He's been on the show before, Uber entrepreneur. He's great with growth strategies, marketing, and much, much more. Very talented guy. Always brings a ton of value with every single conversation him and I have. So if you want to catch his previous episode, just go to cashflowninja.com and type in Eugene Shatsman. Eugene, great to see you. Great to have you back on the show.
It's so awesome to be here again, MC.
But Eugene, for folks that don't know who you are and what you do, could you please share a little bit about your background and journey with us?
Sure. So I think the easiest way to describe it is that I am a growth strategist. I have a team of 220 or so individuals who are all growth strategists in some capacity. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that we use marketing, we use technology, we use data, and of course, we use strategy to help practices, specifically in the medical field, grow. But a lot of the concepts that I teach and I train are concepts that can be used universally by just about any business. But we do have the largest growth company in the optometric space. So any optometrists or any people, any individuals in the vision space listening out there, you're probably either working with us or maybe you should be working with us if you have a desire to grow your business. And so we used to be just a marketing company, but over time we realized that marketing plus technology plus data plus strategy delivers an exponential result. And so we've evolved from just being a marketing company to now being a focused growth strategy firm.
I like that because on the marketing side, you guys can blow up a company's marketing and make them omnipresent and just have a ton of people basically bang on their doors. But then you now have another problem, right? So there's a lot of different business problems. It's like, well, we can't get the ideal clients or customers. Well, now you've fixed that. Now it's like, okay, the next problem is, okay, we don't have the data, we don't have the systems, we don't have the fulfillment side of this down to
Well, that's
to
exactly
service
it.
them.
You're
Yeah.
totally right. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of added technology to our suite of services. Because, let me just give you an example. So, to your point, oftentimes companies would hire us and say, we need to see more, medical companies would hire us and say, we need to see more patients. So, we would do our thing. And then all of a sudden, being a good marketing company, we, of course, want to track the results that we're delivering. And so one of the ways that we track results that we deliver is we record the phone calls that come into the medical office. MC, if you had to guess, what percentage of medical practice phone calls that come in during business hours end up going to voicemail or just not being answered at all?
It's got to be more than 80%.
Well, okay, so you're not so generous to our friends in the medical industry, but it is true. It's somewhere between 20 and 50% of all calls, and that's like a new patient trying to get in the door, go unanswered during business hours. And then it gets worse because then a large percentage of the calls that do get answered, and let's say it's a new patient, at that point your 80% metric comes in, actually 85%. 85% of new patients that call a medical practice do not get on the schedule, do not end the call with getting on the schedule. And usually it's not really a matter of mismatch. It's not a matter of service mismatch. Like, they know what you do. They did enough research to pick up the phone and call you. It's a matter of you couldn't match their schedule. You gave them a bad experience on the phone. They didn't have their insurance card on them. They didn't, whatever that problem is that you're artificially creating a barrier on the phone, it didn't get it scheduled. And so we then went through and we said, okay, well, we're not just a marketing company. So just as an example, so then we opened our own call center. And we said, okay, we're going to try to solve this problem for practices just to see what's possible. And call centers are not the easiest businesses to manage, and they're staff heavy. So we intentionally kept our call center small and only worked with a small batch of clients. And what we learned is that it's actually possible to get over 100% conversion rate. Like, while most practices only get 15% a new patient conversion rate, we're getting over 100% because we're asking people while they're on the phone, we're asking, and who else in your household needs an appointment, or who else do you know who need, and we found that 14% of patients give us a name. So you ask for the referral, you get the referral, right? So then we started saying, okay, so how do you solve this problem further? And so, for example, as a company that's, as I said, we're a growth company, we're not just a marketing company. So yes, we generate the lead, but now we also have to close it. So we were solving the problem with people, but now we're going to solve the problem with technology. So, for example, my organization has the first product in the vision industry space that is going to be able to schedule appointments and is connected directly to the electronic health records and to the place where you can look and see if a patient you can see exactly what the doctor's schedule looks like. So we're connected to all of the major EHRs in the industries that we serve. So then we're able to look and see when the availability happens, and the AI agent can book the appointment. And that's a product that we have coming out in December of 2025. And it's the first of its kind, at least in our industry. So this is one of those things where we can solve a problem with marketing, but then we've created another problem, just as you said, and we can take that problem and we can solve it with technology. And along the way, just to make sure that all of it's working, we're using data. And my suspicion is once those patients get on the schedule, we're going to find another problem, and then we're going to have to solve that problem as well.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, the example that you just used, that in today, especially, I don't know about you, but I find it so hard to just find people on the phone with
Mm-hmm.
businesses. I mean, it's almost like that's why I essentially my estimate was like, well, probably 80% of people, maybe more, because from my own experience, it's almost impossible. So just by being there and people having access to another human being or to helpful technology to get them scheduled and get them booked. I mean, it's you're already a differentiating company in your space, regardless of where you're at.
Well, and it's interesting because the way that you kind of present that is that, it is true that um, we humans, at the reason we're calling is because we have a question, right? Otherwise, we would have just booked online. But we
Yes.
have a question, and that question may have something to do with pricing. That question may have something to do with availability. And if you think about the human psychology, which is really my background is that I studied consumer decision making, right? And so that was economics, that was psychology, there's a little bit of business. And so what I want to try to understand is how do consumers make decisions in a space where they have options? And I started my organization at a really, I'd call it opportune time, the recession of 2008, 2009, 2010, like that time is when I started my organization. And the reason I started at that point was because there were two things going on. Number one, it was the recession. So everybody was pulling out of the market, and so the share of voice was wide open, right? So I said, if we have data driven technology at that point to be able to tell whether the stuff is working or not, nobody can afford to waste money on marketing. But if you are investing money at that particular point, you can prove how that investment's working, then you've got a competitive advantage. And number two thing that was happening at that time was the advent of the smartphone. So all of the sudden, all of the choices that the consumer had became more accessible and more convenient to access, right? So, like, I no longer had to go ask my cousin or my brother or my coworker about which eye doctor they recommend. I also didn't have to go in the yellow pages. I could use a tool called Google, which was in my pocket the entire time, right? And so when that situation transformed, I dedicated most of my career to studying how do consumers make decisions, pick one business over another business, and they do it in a digital form. And what are the kinds of things that we need to do as business owners in order to be able to serve the demand that creates? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the growth, um, your specialty, and you've got a system, the boss system, for that, and any company can use this. This is just not for optometrists. Can you tell me where that came from, and then also share a little bit about the system?
Well, that's exactly. I mean, it's kind of an extension of what we've just been talking about, which is that I've always wanted to be a growth strategist and not only a marketer. But what I found is that when you give companies, and this actually originated with, I was part of I taught a class to a bunch of medical business owners. And during that class, I really wanted to deliver a ton of value to those people. And as we delivered value, my partner and I delivered value to these practices. We thought the best way to deliver value was we had identified 117 ways that you can grow a business. And we said, okay, what we're going to do is everybody's going to log on for 3 hours a month. And we're going to teach you 2 ways every single month, so that at the end of a 12-month period, you've really gotten your money's worth, because you've got 24 solid ways that we've taught you how to grow your business. That was the idea, right? And that's kind of working on what I'd call like the revenue growth cycle of a business. What is interesting is that about 3 or 4 months into this experience, we were polling our participants in this course, and they were basically crying uncle. They were saying, guys, this is really, really great information, but I just can't go to my staff and get them to execute on any of these ideas anymore. Like, they're tapped, and I can't, and they're kind of hoping that this idea is just going to go away, and they don't have to do anything that we're learning about, because the reality is that they're already got their hands full, and they got their day to day, and they're busy, and they're burned out, as we often hear about staff in today's environment, and staffing is the biggest problem. And that's when it dawned on me, MC, when it was like, man, the reason people can't execute, and I went through this, by the way, with my own company at some point, as we were scaling and growing, is that they don't have a system to scale and grow internally. Because a lot of growth happens externally when you hire companies like mine, and they generate revenue, they generate business for you. But in order to keep up with that type of growth, you have to have the people, the systems, and the strategies in place to be able to accomplish that. And so this is where we started developing, and my partner in the system had scaled his own business to a really, really substantial company, one of the largest in the industry. And I had built and scaled my business, and I had watched and helped thousands of practices across the nation grow. So I've seen what works. We've all made the mistakes. And what we tried to do is create a system that was really kind of a manual and a playbook for how you grow a business. And so it's called BOSS, the Business Optimization Scalability System. And so what is the BOSS system? Well, it's got 5 core components in it. Core component number 1 is accountability, which basically, and I'll talk about these separately, but accountability is the ability for the business to know where it's headed, and to also keep track of issues, and have a way to communicate that's a universal language across the organization. Number 2, part of the second subsystem is people. People, anytime I speak on stage, which I just came back from a speaking tour, and I ask this question all the time, and people even do interactive surveys. And I say, what's the biggest issue in your business? What's the biggest problem in your business? And people or people-related issues are always number 1 in today's environment. I don't know what's happened, but in the last 5 years, I kind of know what's happened, but in the last 5 years, that's become the number 1 driver of issues. And so what we've found is that, you need a way to organize your people in line with their strengths. You need a way to force rank your people. You need a way to measure performance, to develop leaders. And so the people system helps with that. Then you've got revenue, which is all the growth systems, right? Like all the stuff that I do for my clients, all the stuff that clients can do for themselves, building referrals, getting a whole bunch of revenue generating activities working together. That's the revenue system. And then you've got data and experience as the last 2 systems. Data is the types of things that you measure to determine whether you're going to be successful or not, leading indicators, lagging indicators, and how you use that data across the different groups in your organization. And then there's the experience. What is your client or patient or whoever your customer is? What is their experience like from their perspective? And in a world that's becoming increasingly AI and technology driven, when you do have a touch point with your customer or your client, how do you maximize that so that you really use that as a differentiator? So those are the 5 core components: accountability, people, revenue, experience, and data. Those are the 5 core components of the BOSS business optimization scalability system.
If you were a business owner listening to this and listening to that system, what are the things you store them in that specific order and that's how you work them through?
Yeah, I would love to start every business with revenue, but I found that you've got to be third. Because I like, my natural place, anyone ever comes to me, I love talking to business owners. I mean, I was at a party and I just couldn't help myself, right? Like a guy, it was at a kid's birthday party, and a guy who owns a small construction company came over to me, and we were chit-chatting about, initially it started with the kids bouncing on trampolines, but it ended with 6 different ways he could grow his construction company, just because, I can't help myself. So I love helping people grow. But I realized that even, you need to have systems in place, or these fundamentals, these pillars in place in your business. Otherwise, you can't grow, right? All the ideas in the world don't matter if you can't execute.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely true. You start with accountability. What the easiest place to start if you're a business owner is if you have staff. Listen, I used to get interrupted every single day, all day long, with employees coming to me and like, hey, boss, we got a problem. Hey, boss, we got a problem. And more employees, more problems, right? Every single day, I would be in my office till 10 o'clock at night, just solving other people's problems that they would be bringing to me, because I felt like it was my responsibility as a business owner to do that. Well, if you implement the accountability system, you no longer have that problem. Because what happens is, first of all, and let's just run through it very quickly. First of all, you got a single place where everybody keeps track of all of the issues they encounter. Yes, there are some urgencies, but those urgencies get treated at a different level. Like, hey, our coffee maker broke is a different, or our coffee doesn't taste good, is a different type of problem to this client says they're really upset and they need a refund, and they're super mad.
Yeah.
That's a different type of issue. But the ability to have a systematic way to log all of those, to prioritize those, to identify the core fundamental. Because maybe you, the business owner, can get on the phone and smooth it over with that client and whatever, but did you really address the core fundamental issue of why that client was upset in the first place? Or maybe you, the business owner, can stay late and and clean out the coffee maker and deal with making sure the employees have coffee for the next day. But again, are you just going to have to do that again in 3 weeks, or did you address the core fundamental underneath that? And depending on the level of impact on the business, you can also prioritize them. So the accountability system gives you that. It also gives you a cadence of the types of meetings that you need to have in your organization in order to be able to keep everybody on the same page and to make everybody comfortable with just logging issues, not walking over to your office or walking over to your desk or virtually or whatever and saying, boss, I have a problem, boss, I have a problem, boss, I have a problem, and dumping it all on you. But let's log it. Let's make sure it's a process by which we review that. So all the meetings that you need to have weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. And then in addition to that, you have an opportunity to set the goals of where the organization is headed and where each individual is headed. So you do all of that through the accountability system. So everybody is aligned, rowing in the same direction, identifying things that are keeping you from rowing in that same direction, and has a process by which they review that stuff. So that's the first place I advise any business owner to start. And then you deal with people. And then now that you've got the process, kind of the accountability system and the people, now you can inject growth ideas into those particular things. And then you can say, okay, now that I can inject those growth things, now I have the infrastructure essentially to support the change I'm trying to make in my organization.
Otherwise, you're just creating more chaos. Right?
Exactly. And I've done this. I've had this mistake where, as I was growing, as I mentioned, I have over 200 employees. But at some point, I was like, man, we are super busy. Like, we are all busy. We're like all freaking firing on all cylinders, and we are super busy. Why don't we add some more people? And then we add more people. And now my payroll goes up. And yet nobody seems to be more productive. People are now training people, and they're training people in bad systems. And now people are just literally, there's the hamster wheel of, I've added, maybe I added my 20th employee or my 100th employee, but the output that I'm getting from my 100th employee is like 1/20th of what I was getting from my first employee, right? And I think people have had this experience where you start saying, okay, like what the heck did we do wrong? Like why is this happening to us? And that's where, again, this is one of the reasons why we created the BOSS system, the business optimization scalability system, is so that you've got a process by which you can really scale.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing the infrastructure, the people, because the sexy stuff is the revenue. Oh, we doubled our revenue, did
Right.
this, and meanwhile, nobody's telling you. You see all these things on social media, but nobody's telling you, oh, what you doubled and tripled your headaches, and you're probably going to have a heart attack within the next 5 years at this rate, because you've now created just a behemoth that complicates your life even more, right?
Well, that's it. And if you just put people into systems that don't work, and if everyone's not aligned, and if you don't have the right approach across the board, you're just going to create more headaches, and ultimately you're going to be churning through people. And now you've added this awful HR responsibility across the board to yourself, and then and then your payroll has gone up and your productivity hasn't, and all of a sudden this is taking a chunk out of your EBITDA. All of this happened to me. I'm not saying this as some just outside observer. All of this happened to me. And then all of the other parts of this, I've watched it happen across the hundreds and hundreds of businesses that we've served. I've watched it happen, and I've watched people experience growth, get really excited about growth, hire more people, put them into bad systems, and then all of a sudden the business takes a dip, because what made that business great, which was often the quality, the service, the experience they were able to deliver, all takes a giant dip because the owner is now so focused on trying to keep up with silly HR issues or productivity or training or or answering got a second questions all day long, that they don't have the opportunity to focus on what truly makes the business great. So in the people system of the boss framework, or of the boss structure, what we teach is that you have to be able to identify kind of a zone of genius for every single person, especially the business owner. And this is not a new concept across the board. Dan Sullivan's taught this for years, with his unique ability. But we teach you have to identify the zone of genius for every single person, and you also have to force rank your staff and agree where is the line that you're willing to draw, in order to say, okay, I will not accept performance below this level. And if those people aren't there, even if they've been there for years, even if they've helped you get to where you are, those may not be the same people that help you get to where you're trying to go.
AI, you're one of the thought leaders in your space in AI. Um, Please tell me a little your philosophy, your approach to AI, and then how this fits into this system. I know you've given a couple of examples already, but if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting space, because, as I mentioned already, I started my business at a time when humans' relationship, or the human relationship with information, was shifting. And it really, like, the first time that human relationship with information shifted was in the 90s, late 90s, when two guys decided they were going to try to catalog all the world's information, in a search engine, right? And that was like, okay, now we no longer have to have disparate information and library card catalogs, if any of your listeners remember what that looks like, to now we have all of the information accessible, right? The second piece that happened was when I started my business in 2008, 2009, was that information went from being accessible to being accessible and convenient, because now we could have those search engines in our pockets. But we still had to program ourselves algorithmically to try to figure out how to solve problems using that information. And part of that was like, okay, I'm going to type in a search on Google, and then I'm going to try to build, and I'm going to click on a web page and I'm going to read the content on that web page. And I'm going to click the back button. I'm going to go to the next web page, but it was still a market improvement from what we were doing before, right? And now, in the last couple of years, our relationship with information has shifted from accessible and convenient to accessible, convenient, and also customized and efficient, right? Because now our queries, the output that we get, it's much faster for us, and it's also much more convenient from a standpoint of being able to, and it's customized, because it's now customized to our very specific query that we are really looking for. So if, I don't know, I have this remote control and it stops working, I can literally say, this remote control has stopped working. How can I fix it? And AI will give us without me having to click on any page, read anything, whatever, I will get the output no matter where I go. I can go to Grok, I can go to ChatGPT, I can go to Claude, I can literally type it into the Google search bar, and that will be a Gemini output. So my team, I have a 8-person AI team that just does AI, and I also have a development team. And so what we're trying to do is we're going to say, how do we leverage that philosophy of, okay, now we've got customization and we've got convenience and we've got the ability to solve problems in a non-traditional way. How do we leverage this technology, and how do we train this technology? Because remember, it's super customized. So how do we train this technology a little bit like an employee?
Yep.
Every step of the way, because I think there's a big difference. And I'm sure you have some experience with this, going from, I've got a piece of software like a Microsoft Word that I bought, and it has specs and it does exactly the same thing every single time. And I know, and I need to train myself how to use it so that I can get the best possible output from it, to now shifting the perspective to say, okay, I have a kind of like a virtual employee type of thing that could potentially be trained to be customized to me, to solve whatever problem I'm trying to solve. So my team is building agents. We're building solutions that are specific to the problems we identify in the world. But what we're really looking for, MC, and I'm sure you've had this experience, is what are complicated tasks that require a lot of human time, but still follow a set of rules, algorithmic rules, in order to complete. So that whether that's analyzing large swaths of data or comparing 3 major data sets, that's a great task for AI to potentially look at. Or whether it's answering the phone at a practice, right, at a medical practice, that's a great task for. It's complicated because there's a lot of rules, but if you can articulate what those rules are in order to train a person, you can articulate what those rules are in order to train an AI.
Yeah.
Or what we're on the hunt for, and this is, there's a 2-prong approach for us. Group number 1, guys like me who are deeply ingrained in our clients' reality and day-to-day life. Guys like me are out there hunting for problems that we think AI can solve. And then there's a whole group of people behind me say, okay, we are the guys who are trying to solve those problems. So what can we do to leverage the technology, to customize it, to train it, to basically create these virtual employees that can solve, because we think that the relationship with the information now becoming much more customized creates that opportunity.
Fascinating. It's incredible to see the use cases already. And I mean, like, again, it's a tool. That's what people get excited about. And I'm like, why are you excited? And they're like, well, it's AI. It's just it's a tool. Like you said, you're going to have to train it. And that's been my experience too with the projects that we're involved with, is that, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of time initially that you have to put into it, and it challenges your thinking, the prompts that you put into it and to program it. So it's not a pill that you can swallow or an injection that you can give yourself. You're actually going to have to put in some work in it to get the maximum value out of it, right?
Right. And there's not enough vendors, I think, and I'm trying to position our organization kind of as a growth company. We will have growth solutions that are a little bit off the shelf from that vantage point, but there's really not enough vendors out there that have done the work to customize it. So just like an employee, if you're going to hire even the sharpest, the brightest employee who's new to your business, who's new to your industry, who's new to whatever, They just may know all of the world's information, but they don't know how to apply it to you yet, right? So you still have to train that tool. So you either are going to pay with resources and time to train the tool in your business, or you're going to pay with money to have a vendor who has trained the tool for your business and has customized that solution. So right now, as at least what I'm finding is that the vendors, the industry specific vendors, are relatively sparse. So for medical practices that we serve, we are trying to become that leader and elite, and that's why I'm excited. When you think about excitement, I'm excited because there's a market opportunity that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to snag that as much as possible and try to collaborate with as many people as possible to to solve as many problems as possible. But on the other side, your point is absolutely right. It's like it's a tool, and that tool now has the customization that has never been seen before. So like sometimes I'm speaking on stage and I'm one of the premier speakers in our industry on practical applications of artificial intelligence in the medical field. And doctors are in my audience and they're getting CE for the classes I'm teaching. And sometimes I'm like, guys, I've figured out some things and I've watched some people figure out some things, but it's still like the one-eyed man leading the blind type of thing. And that's where we'll be. My prediction is that's where we'll be for at least the next 2 to 3 years until there's more robust training that's available for you can literally like plug in training directly into the AI tools that is very specific to your business and more or less universal.
As we look into the new year, what are some of the dangers that you're seeing out there in the marketplace for business owners, and what are some of the things that excites you?
I think this AI conversation we're having is all about it, right? Like the biggest impact I think that business owners can make on their own business is identify 3 to 5 processes that you're already doing that you can either make more efficient, as a result, possibly more cost effective. And number 2 is a better experience for your customers or clients, right? Whether that's a faster response to an email, whether that's a better set of data that you're working with, but how do you make your client's life better as a result of adopting this process? And number 3 is revenue generation. I mean, what are the tools that you can invest in that can generate revenue, make your clients' lives better, make your customers or clients' lives better, or patients' lives better, and then help you be more efficient? That's the stuff that's super exciting. The stuff that's scary is if your competitor, the guy who's sitting across the street from you, whether virtually or if they figure it out first. That's the scary part. If you're left behind and you're totally you're like the last guy to jump on the train because you're waiting for the train to be really headed in that direction, the results you're going to get are very suboptimal compared to being the first guy who's on that train, who's trying to set the direction for where that train's going.
It's almost like most businesses are bookstores right now, and we are headed into the millennium. And it's, you're either going to have to adapt and make some changes, or, you're going to get Amazoned.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I think you couldn't be more right about that. And I think we have to, that's both the opportunity and the danger. But like the cool part is that it's not going to take you millions and millions of dollars to build Amazon. The infrastructure is being invested in right now. The hundreds of billions of dollars that are being spent on chips and it's really hard to go 1 week without seeing another company making another big investment into AI. All they're doing is plowing the roads, right? Like they're building the roads, they're building the infrastructure so that you can decide what kind of car you're going to drive on it. And it's really your choice whether you're going to go like take a unicycle and, beat up unicycle that's rusty and, you're trying to balance on it as you're trying to go down that road, or if you're going to invest a little bit extra time, resources, build a Ferrari and go coast to coast as fast as you possibly go.
It's a very good analogy too of the roads and the infrastructure are being built out, because there's a lot of information and people talking about, oh, AI is a bubble and it's going to pop and all that stuff. And I said, yeah, so was the internet at some stage, right? Amazon's built out and have swallowed millions of businesses. The same thing here. The other thing that I would also say about AI is most of the dangers people see coming, and I think what people don't realize yet, and I've had many conversations with folks, and they're like, well, maybe I'll be a late adapter. I'm like, a late adapter? You don't see this coming. You see a bad economy coming. You see markets go down. You see business slow down, sales, traffic. You see commercial real estate. I mean, you see empty malls. You know what's coming next. You see 2020 with people being forced to work from home. You know what's happening to office spaces. So you can actually physically see it. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
This is invisible, so a lot of people don't see it or even know that they're interacting with this already.
Exactly. I think we're all using so much AI on a daily basis. So you're really not a late adopter. It's kind of like, it's almost like saying, hey, I'm going to be the guy to back to your point. I'll wait for the internet to evolve a little bit before I start using it. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's already running your life. You might as well just figure out how to profit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Eugene, this has been fantastic, my friend. Where can folks follow you? Where can they connect? Where can they stay in touch? And get all the information that you guys put out and share. And if they're looking for help, if they're in the eye care space, optometry space, where can they reach out?
Yeah, let's post a link in the episode description, but it's just my first name, my last name.com, eugeneshatsman.com. And there you'll see access to the boss system. You'll see access to my podcast. You'll see access to if you want to get some help, you can reach out to that. You can see some of the classes I teach, and also links to my company called National Strategic Group that works directly with medical practices.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming back onto the show and, again, providing so much value to all of my listeners and viewers.
All right. Great. Thanks, MC.
And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers for, again, spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me on the show. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. We've got over 1,000 podcasts, 4 books, reports, webinars, and much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the #1 newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You could subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. Until next time, live infinitely. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.